Welcome to Cognitive Rampage Podcast. Hope you're taking care of you. Hope you're living your cognitive rampage. This is an educational day, gentlemen. This is a mile mark also. This is our, 200th episode?
Number 200.
200, and it gets to be with my old friend, Adam Taylor.
Good to be here.
Welcome.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. We've come a long ways. And who have you brought with you today, my friend?
This is Ryan Scottson, co-founder of Canna MD.
And Michael Thompson. I'm the founder of Canna Chronicle.
So we have some serious cannabis knowledge in the room, is what I'm getting at here.
That'd be a yes.
That'd be a yes. I appreciate you guys coming on, really, because I know I got a few friends that are in the business. I got another close friend that is a part of another another license, I would say. So I get some information, and Adam's full of information too, and what I know, but it gets so fucking confusing. Like, people really have no fucking clue. And I used to still laugh when I'd be at a party or bar and I'd hear guys talking about, yeah, we're going to open our dispensary and we're going to do all this. And I'm like, motherfuckers have no idea. You know what I mean? I'm like, you have no how many millions you got right now? You know what I mean? That's my first question. But it's always like, 2 or 3 guys that like sold some weed on the street, and they're all like, you know what, we're gonna go legal. And somebody's phone's going. That's you, Adam. Cut your thing up. And it's usually those guys, right? They're all like, hey, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna put this together. No, look, I used to be that guy. I was a guy going, yeah, when it gets legal, we'll have our all on. And then I saw the legislation and the money, and I went, we're fucked. Yeah, I'm not being I can't do shit. So I appreciate you all coming on to try to help us kind of get through the waters or the murky waters, or what's really there. Because right now it's as far as I know, I'll just drop a little bit what I know. It's CBD oil is legal in Florida, and it's medically legal. And that's as far as we really are, right?
No, that's incorrect.
Fuck. See what I mean?
Yeah, you can get high THC medical marijuana in the state of Florida now. You have to have a qualifying condition. I think Adam actually.
Go ahead and pull that mic to you, Ryan. Yeah, go ahead. Go pull that whole thing to you.
So the different ailments were cancer, epilepsy, glaucoma, HIV, AIDS, PTSD, ALS, Crohn's disease, Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis, and then also medical conditions of the same kind or class as those comparable to those enumerated in paragraphs A through J, which are the ones that I just read off. A terminal condition, you can also get medical cannabis, and then chronic non-malignant pain. But there's a very specific definition for chronic non-malignant pain, and it's not the medical definition. It's a little bit, it gets a little bit confusing.
Go on.
Yeah. It's,
I'm listening. Yeah.
Senate Bill 8A. I mean, that's our Bible right now. That's what we are doing the best we can to interpret and implement the will of the voters. It's been a long journey. I know Michael has been on the journey as long, if not longer, than I've been. And Florida's been an interesting state to watch. There's a lot of misconceptions, as you said. There are 29. We're the 29th state. Plus, there's Washington, D.C. that has at least medical in place. So, but every state is different, right? Florida is just, it's another animal. You want to elaborate on that, Michael?
Yeah. The marketplaces and the products that are available, the different extraction methods, what's legal, what's available, the types of cannabis that are available in Washington versus, the types of cannabis that's, grown here in Florida. For example, one thing about Florida is that, we don't have as much of a choice as some of the other states, if you kind of think about it, especially when you look at California. Right now, there's a huge change that's happening in California because they just went full rec.
Right.
And for people that think that they're worried about Jeff Sessions cracking down at the federal level, there's so much lobbying money now that's going into, and you have a lot of Republican legislatures at the federal level, congressmen that are totally supporting, at least legislation that recognizes the state laws And I think a lot of this rhetoric that's coming out of the Justice Department is just to kind of scare the marketplace to keep investors, because it's a thriving industry right now. I mean, some could argue that, like, and I don't mean to get too off topic, but a lot of the companies are just kind of big pump and dumps. A lot of them don't even have a grow operations. We're talking about publicly traded Canadian companies. Some of them but the fact of the matter is that the marketplace, there's so much money that, you don't really catch those Bernie Madoffs. You don't really catch those frauds until there's like a huge retraction. And I think it's such a huge industry. And, I've talked to different politicians. I've talked to people that are running for office, and I just asked them, I'm like, hey, there's a House bill right now, House Bill 1203, that's to completely decriminalize cannabis here in Florida. And I've talked to some of these representatives, and they're like, oh, I don't know, that'd be really bad. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I don't know if you realize this, but do you know that if you get convicted of possession of cannabis in certain amounts, that the ramifications of that conviction can mean, you're not eligible for FHA loan, you're not eligible, or subsidized student loans, Pell grants, a lot of
forget
things.
A job.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
job.
Just trying to get a job.
Yeah. And I talked to one representative. She's running for District 39, and her rebuttal is like, well, we've got diversion. I support diversion programs. I'm like, do you realize that veterans and African Americans are disproportionately arrested for these types of laws that are based in racism?
Yeah, no, they don't.
And she's like, yeah, well, I support diversion programs. I'm like, do the arrest alone, the ramifications from the arrest alone have a huge impact on your life.
Yeah, I love the diversion programs. Just more programs that some private companies created that's not full of scientific research at all to help anybody divert anybody from anything. If any of these programs worked, you wouldn't have the recidivism rate that you have through jails right now. I mean, I talk about chemical incarceration, but that leads to real incarceration. And for me, being on the mental health side, it's huge for me because I've been arguing against how we treat, say, the aka opiate epidemic, how we treat mental health, right? The first thing is pills, right? You're depressed, here's some pills. And they don't realize the ramifications these pills have on people's lives. They help, sure, there's outliers that help, but there's certain risks, and this becomes a front line. So I've watched people, that had an opiate issue for 20 years, 15 years, just quit and turn fully to marijuana and just smoking cannabis, period. And I'm like, see, even if that's one person, even if it's a fucking outlier, it should be fine, because if the depressants and antidepressants have outliers and they actually make you want to kill yourself, and that's okay, then things like cannabis, anything. I've watched, and like veterans too. I treated many veterans inside addiction facilities. And I mean, this is medicine, right? And so we want to have a diversion program to divert them from using medicine that could actually help their mental health. You know what I mean? It's all kinds of fucking backwards. And I think you brought up an interesting point, which is where I think I know I'm going to get an earful from you too on this one, is the business that keep people scared, to keep people out and not wanting to get in. And that's usually the market you want to get into, right? If you can. And if you could kind of elaborate, maybe a pass off, if you will, of what that means, what it really takes. I was joking about how people think they're just going to, start growing and get a license, right?
So right now there are 7 dispensaries in the state that are dispensing. Okay, they all do home delivery. Some cover some parts of the state, others cover all the state. But they've already chosen another 10, so 17 total.
Okay.
And all 17 of these applied for an application. I mean, they turned their application in about 3 years ago.
Okay, so it's just a 3-year process starting an application to begin with.
No, well, they awarded 5 right away.
Okay.
And then 2 were awarded via administrative challenges.
What are some of these qualifications? I mean, could Adam Lowry Inc. have filed an app?
No. The initial applicants.
I love the smile too. It's like, yeah, that's cute.
Yeah, we'll fill it out. So
you can fill it out. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, first of all, you need $500,000 plus to turn in one of those applications.
Just to turn the fucker in.
Just to turn it in.
Okay.
Right. And you had to be a licensed Florida nursery for 30 or more years and have a plant count of more than 400,000 plants in order to apply.
Now, I heard the
big old nurseries, those are the only ones that were allowed to apply.
See, I heard the NAACP jumped in somewhere on the Florida law that tried to cut out that had to be in business for 30 years. because they were saying minorities couldn't own a farm at a certain time.
Yeah, and there was just. Do you want to go into that, Michael?
Yeah. So from my understanding, apparently the Black Farmers Association was awarded a license, and the moment that they were awarded, a white license, was it through legislation or court order?
Actually, through the legislation, wasn't it? I mean, ultimately, I think there was a suit, but then I think legislation went ahead. And
so before the suit, here's the settlement. And here's your license.
And immediately the Black Farmers Association shut it off to fellow Black farmers. So you couldn't even become a member of the Black Farmers Association.
Whoa. So the Black Farmers Association mixed with the NAACP runs against to argue that this law is unfair because you couldn't own a farm, a minority 30 years ago, etc., which I'm all for. I'm all for that. I was supporting that. Yeah, it's bullshit if that's
absolutely.
But then they get it crossed, get their license, and then box out everybody else, Charles Barkley style.
Yeah,
that's my understanding as well. And now,
what the fuck?
And then there's just what just happened in court. I mean, what was it, last week before? I mean, there was another action that happened. Didn't the judge decide that wasn't fair, and they basically then they threw the whole thing out.
Okay, so they couldn't get it done.
So they went back and forth, and now the license, I believe, is getting awarded to just one of the applicants that turned in.
I think so, and they're also, Christian Backs is using that this particular lawsuit and a couple of others as an excuse not to issue more licenses. So
fucked it up for everybody.
Yeah, so it got so bad that the Surgeon General, is that right, of Florida? Is that the title correct? Surgeon General of Florida, Christian Backs' boss, right? She pretty much did a boss move and forced the ID, because it used to be 90 days to get a card in Florida. Yes. Like, so the moment you apply, it would take like 90 days.
Now this is to be able to be a patient,
right? And they got rid of the 90-day requirement, but it still took 90 days, right? So just because of the bureaucracy, because they didn't hire more people, and they just had a handful of government employees, that there was no incentivization. They want to milk the clock and do all that kind of stuff. So, she Christian Backs' boss, I believe the Surgeon General, she pretty much stepped in and made the contract be awarded to a private company. So now the private company, part of their agreement when they did their notice for proposal, when they put out the notice for proposal, part of the agreement was that they have to do the cards and turn around in 21 days. And a lot of people don't know this, but when you get your card, like, you can go to like CanMD or whatever doctor you want to go to, and when you go and get your card, you get that approval number. It only takes a few days to get the approval number, and you can go to different dispensaries like Trulieve or Knox. You can go in that dispensary and go ahead and put your first order in within a few days. So wow. This whole notion that, it's going to take forever, that's not necessarily true.
No, there's a 20-day, from what I can hear now, of a wait.
So 20 days.
20 days.
It was months. I mean, it was really bad. But the Department of Health, they were bogged down. They had 3 employees at that time handling thousands of applications coming in, and so they had to outsource. That's a mess.
I'd be tipping their ass. I'd be walking in and going, "How many of you doing apps? What you need right here."
that whole process is a mess too. I mean, one of the companies that lost the bid to be able to issue those licenses is now suing, and so we'll see where that goes. It's been a process in the state of Florida, but bottom line, patients they do have access to medical marijuana, not flower yet. There's a legal case going on for that as well, but you can get oils, tinctures, transdermal patches. It was funny the other day, Adam and I actually had a laugh about it. Now they have, is it suppositories?
Yes.
I think they have marijuana suppositories. Right. Yeah. So
rectal suppositories.
There was always there was always that weird fucker at the party when we were fucking eating X or doing some drugs back in the day. It was like, put it in your ass, it gets you way higher. And I'm like, fuck it. There was always that dude there.
I'll be right back. I gotta go to the bathroom. What are you going to the bathroom?
Yeah, it's totally a different high, man. It goes right in this way, and then it just hits your brain. Pat, I'm like, you're full of shit, literally, bro. Get the fuck out, man. I mean, it's that's funny. Patricia was just joking about that with me the other day. He was like, soon, well, they probably have this soon. I'm like, well, they do. You were mentioning the so it's only oils is all you can get here, right? Oils, patches.
So far, there was actually on the 25th. of January, John Morgan, he sued the state. They had their opening arguments, and the judge ruled in their favor. So it is going to trial.
That's a win.
Yeah, it's a huge win for the patients of Florida.
Walk through those that don't know. We kind of jumped into that case about flowering, etc. Walk through what that means.
Well, the legislation, they basically, obviously 71% of voters in the state of Florida voted for medical marijuana, end of 2016, November 2016, and it took the legislation a long time to enact Senate Bill 8A. And one of the biggest issues in a lot of people's opinion is the fact that they only allow oil. In the legislation, they stated, well, trying to keep it medical,
but there's benefits to smoking the flower too that are medical.
The entourage effect is one of the biggest. I mean, that's one of the biggest benefits. And so, yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. We'll see how it pans out, but I think flower is going to be allowed. If you look at other states, again, we've got 28 other states plus Washington, D.C. to look at. They all started somewhere.
Sure. And
then they progressed to where they are now.
Yeah.
Florida's I have no reason to believe that Florida won't be the same way.
What say you on that?
Yeah. I think, with flower, and I remember this last legislative session when the arguments they were using against flower and the way the whole system works, the legislature works, it's like the power is very manipulated and controlled. And, you can, because, they've got information on each other and all kinds of crazy stuff. So you're like, don't you understand that you probably got more messages and emails than anything else about saying, this is with Ray Rodriguez, saying why aren't you putting flower in this legislation? And they just don't care because, somebody's got something on them. So they're just going to go ahead and pass the bill that their bosses or tell them to. A lot of these guys are taking money from a lot of big pharmaceutical companies. So anything they can do to keep you from being able to fully heal yourself. See, there's hundreds of different cannabinoids in the plant. We're all born with an endocannabinoid system. Right. And when you get in between that doctor-patient relationship, I mean, I don't know these politicians. I don't know who they are. They don't know the difference between 9-hydroxy and 11-hydroxy THC. They've never taken the 8-hour CME course. And I've called out the Florida
2-hour.
Yeah, or the 2-hour. Yeah. So they're not really qualified to have a very, grounded scientific understanding of the plant. And it's a miracle plant. And these pharmaceutical companies, so some of these executives are getting in on the new marijuana industrial complex that's happening, and they're getting out of the old school medicine because their profits are going down. Opiate overdoses are going down 25% across the board with states that have increased access.
Another win.
Absolutely, another one. And when we have here in Florida is it's easy to get a card now. And what's going to happen is when flower is allowed, you're going to, because we've got ointments, topical ointments, we've got pure distillate oil, which is 99% THC with a little bit of terpenes. I don't know if you guys know about the terpenes and all that. So THC.
Someone listening doesn't.
Yeah. So THC is your engine, right? That's the engine, the horsepower. And, a lot of the other cannabinoids do a lot of other things, but the terpenes are the driver. So if I just take the cannabis plant and I extract the THC, and then I add a nice Jack Herer terpene blend to that THC, that's going to give you a nice cognitive, almost like a limitless pill type of hyper focus, the exact opposite of the stereotypical lazy stoner narrative, right? Whereas if you had something that's more of a indica, or a sour diesel or blue dream, it's going to be a little bit of a different type feeling. So the terpenes are individual blends. And I think, the more research and individual scientists, a lot of biohackers that are getting into cannabis, and the more data that's available, we're going to see all kinds of benefits.
Remember 80 years, medical marijuana has been taboo, and modern day science has not studied it. I mean, they're just starting to scratch the surface as far as the benefits. You know, and all jokes aside, as far as the rectal application that is now allowed in Florida, or that Knox Nursery carries, it's going to help a lot of very, very sick patients.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing a lot of very sick patients. You know, those are very serious ailments, but we anticipate over time there will be additional conditions added. And more patients here in the state of Florida will be able to benefit from those changes that are made to the legislation.
Yeah, that's the important part. I mean, I'm glad you said jokes aside, because there's certain people that can't swallow. They have certain pains and diseases, disorders that they need to go that way. So you're exactly right. So those changes, and you know, the smoke or the flower problem, it's because you're really trying to talk to some old school head that just has the idea that smoke and lung is bad. And they can't understand that there's different types of smoke, right? Breathing treatments, if you will, these things. So they're still stuck. I mean, some of the smartest people I know, my friends, I try to explain that and they go, you're still putting smoke in your lungs, man. It's bad. You're going to get cancer. I'm like, no, medicine in lung. Help heal. No. Oh, I'm spilling coffee all over my shit. Oh, hey, if we wire out and lose you out there, bro, it's because Adam put coffee on the thing. That's right. But it makes you freak out. You do eventually, and you guys being in the business, and I'm just on this back end, I'm not in the business. I know you got to lose it sometimes, right? Where you're kind of going, you can't get through. Yes, I want to celebrate baby steps, you know, 80 years only. I love that you bring out, we're just studying this. I mean, my buddy, I consider him a scientist when it comes to growing this stuff and how he finds things to do, mixes it with other plants from other natural things. I mean, he's on this mission to heal people, you know, and that's the real goal. But I mean, what happens when they start bringing in, like you said, these, you know, UCLA students and scientists and biologists. And once these people are climbing, they're doing it now, but once they climb all the way through it, 10 years, 20 years, what's this going to provide for people? You know,
it's going to be huge, you know, and they're already doing it in other countries. You know, GW Pharmaceuticals over in Europe. I mean, they're making waves over there. They're doing some really special stuff. But yeah, the federal limitations are what really hinder progress. You know, because you've got some of the smartest scientists that are studying things they're allowed to study, things that federal funding are paying for. And this is not one of them yet. And, you know, until we get some true change on the federal level, it's going to be tough, you know, but I think that with what Sessions did, redacting the Cole memorandum, you know, he ruffled a lot of feathers.
Walk us through what this jackass Sessions is trying to roll us back.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Cole memorandum, it you know, it made it basically against the law. It eliminated federal funding to prosecute states or entities, people in states that are doing things by the book within their state lines, right? So, you know, now, but there's so many, there's again, I think the snowball effect has, like, it's snowballed now at this point.
It's too late.
The cat's out of the bag. You can't put it back in the bag. You know what I'm saying? So I think he ruffled a lot of feathers, and I anticipate this spring session seeing some real changes on a federal level and on a state level. So
I remember I heard a little birdie told me, through one of my sources. So
there's some House of Cards shit going on right now.
Let's give him a shout out.
Yeah, let's not. I think
give him a plug.
I think you guys know who I'm talking about too. So what happened was that this memo, this redacting of this memo wasn't supposed to be released until the expiration of the Bremer-Bacher Amendment, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, which was an amendment that was amended onto the budget that was set to expire on January 19th, which basically that amendment on the budget prohibited the DEA from going after states that adhered to the Cole Memorandum, or the standards of the Cole Memorandum that thereof. So it happened the other way around. So Jeff Sessions' plan was to let the Bremer-Bacher Amendment expire and then rescind the Cole memo, but it happened the other way around. And at the time, Sessions was not invited to Camp David at this time, and like there was a whole White House coalition of 25 people, and Sessions was like the only one not invited. So there's a little headbutting between Trump and Sessions, you know, doing parts of the Mueller investigation. So he's like, you know what, screw you, I'm going to do this, you know. And it was kind of like a little FU to Trump, because his campaign promise was to like actually recognize states' rights. So you have guys like Roger Stone, who's like advocating for Sessions to like completely step down completely, or fire him.
Yeah, get the hell out.
Get him out. And it's actually a blessing, I think, in disguise that this happened, because it put more pressure, political pressure, more companies, more lobbyists to fund, put more money into the NCIA, so then they can lobby harder on politicians to make sure that this Rickenbacker Amendment stays, and that we can potentially get some reclassification, like descheduling
out of Schedule 1, right? Move that to Schedule 2,
out of scheduling.
Out.
Like, let's treat it like a supplement, in my opinion. But
there's big funding. I mean, obviously, big pharma, they carry a real big stick. But with 29 states plus Washington D.C., again with some type of at least medical, if not recreational, in place, there's big money in play right now. In medical marijuana, in recreational marijuana, major investors across the nation that, Sessions, he pissed them off.
I think he fucked up, because
I think he made a big mistake. That's my personal opinion. I think something big's getting ready to happen.
He caused a lot of powerful people to lose hundreds of millions. I mean, the market cap, if you look at like all the top cannabis stocks, and after he rescinded that memo, they all tanked, and you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars, and market cap completely vanished just because of what he did. And when you're talking about everything that, Republican Trump and his platform stands for, jobs in America, and
less fucking regulation, less oversight, more state power, everything the Republican ticket runs on.
Yeah, we import our hemp from China and Russia and in Canada. We could be growing it here in Florida, and all these, these guys are staying silent on it. But the good news is that things are changing, and the stigma is changing. And I spent a lot of my time out in Washington and in Oregon, and it's kind of very normal there. Yeah. When I'm in the grocery store here, I'll just kind of mess with people, like pattern interrupt them. Like, what are you doing after here? Oh, I'm going to go home, smoke a big joint. And they're like,
they still trip out here.
Yeah. So,
they do. Well, it's the South too. I mean, no, it's been here forever too, and most of the people around here that I know, they've been smoking anyway, but what it seems like is the Republicans, I think, if I had to give my observation of the Sessions, the ordeal going down, I think they were going, look, man, we were slowly getting our grips and our hands on the market. We were almost controlling this shit. We're getting it to where we've monopolized it to the companies we can control, that have the lobbyists we are connected with. Shut the fuck up right now, Sessions, before some of these other lefty type companies that got more money than they do start coming into this shit, pissed off that you're trying to hold medicine back from people that are dying. And what we've done is managed to keep them quiet and just kind of say, yes, we're in the back building the giant monopoly that we're creating, given that Florida let all the liberal states go first and went, all right, that's how you made a shitload of money. Now we're going to learn how to double that shit and own that shit when we do it. And that's why Florida's so far behind. I ain't stupid. These guys are around making money, and they're just going, all right, the liberals, they ain't got no money. They gave it away. They're not taxing. That's because you don't own the product, motherfucker. I'm like, I sold dope. I know how it goes. He's sitting in Florida going, all right, we need to control supply. If we control supply, we can set the demand in the state. And with Trump in power, we'll get the state laws to be able to control them. And the physicians union here is one of the most powerful fucking unions in this state. And I've talked about their asses for a long time. They had a whole setup back in 1973 when they built a union here on purpose, so you could then begin to prescribe a narcotic for a narcotic that used to be illegal. You could not prescribe a narcotic to get someone off a narcotic. They set up a physicians union here, got strong as fuck, got dough into it. Why do you think the pill mills popped up in Florida?
That actually, that brings up a good point, the physicians union, right?
Hell, the nurses hate them. You know what I mean? Their own nurses union fucking hates them, because they're trying to keep the nurses down. They try to stop them from being able to prescribe and do things that they can do.
They're making things a little bit more challenging for us. Our physicians are required to actually, when they're in front of the patient, if they're going to be adding a patient to the registry, is it 8 pages? An 8-page form, Adam?
7, I believe.
7 page. Yeah, 7 or 8 page.
You are the detail man.
Yeah, 7 or 8 page form.
I don't want to be wrong.
That they have to fill out. It has to be witnessed, and it's a pretty intense form that patients have to sign, that the state makes them sign. But, it's a little bit more challenging because patients, they come to us and they wonder, why are we so expensive? Well, first of all, we're not compared to the other companies out there. You only have to see us once. you only have to pay us once every 7 months. You know, when you go in for your initial, and then on your renewal. So for initials, we only charge $249. And then for the renewals, we charge $195, which is a very competitive fee statewide.
And how often?
Every 7 months, you come
Okay.
back and see us.
Well,
But that's a requirement by the legislation. The legislation
7 months
requires,
even seems. Oh, they require. So
It's
you're not even
required by
asking
law.
because no
Right.
one's dying off this shit. You know what I mean? Why do I
Right.
got to come back and get a checkup to see if
state law. State law
Yeah.
says we have to see you once every 7 months. There's doctors out there though that are taking advantage of patients and seeing them once every 30 days, 45 days, like they're a pill mill.
telling
right?
them
I mean,
you have
it's-
to come back and see me, getting that
Correct.
getting the fucking copay or getting the thing up front.
Correct.
So some doctors are out there really trying to. Well, imagine that.
They're taking advantage of patients,
Imagine
you know, and it's not fair. So you
Probably
know,
the same motherfucker prescribing antidepressants after talking to somebody for 3 minutes.
yeah, and out west, you know, you go out to California, you can, I mean, spend under $100 to get your medical card, but the requirements that the physicians have out there are not as stringent as what we have to follow on a state. We have a lot of stuff we got to do. Our doctors have a lot of things they have to do when they're in front of that patient. Time is money, you know, but we've made things as efficient as we possibly can. We've kept the patient care is number one for Canna MD, and we've kept that in mind throughout this entire process as we've built our business, as we've launched, and the response has been
walk
tremendous.
the people through. I know I have background because Adam and some of the research I've done, but walk us through before we walk in everything. What Canna MD is really doing. You've talked about the doctors, etc.
Could we call our doctor in because he's available at 12:30 to speak with us?
Yeah, most
Right?
definitely.
You want to call Dr. Schultz and see
Yeah,
if
that's
we
a
can-
great idea.
If we
See
can bring
I
him
can
in.
bring him in.
Yeah, he's available. If anyone wants to look up these,
Go ahead
these
and pull the
laws
mic
that are
to you,
being
bud.
discussed, all you have to do is go to Google and search Senate Bill 8A, and that will allow you to basically search the law that has been passed that all the physicians have to follow. And that also outlines that 210-day renewal process for your certification.
Gotcha.
So there is an initial and then 210 days.
Put him on speaker.
Yeah. We'll bring him in.
Introduce, just let him know that.
Yeah, just hold him in the microphone there when he's chatting, and everybody will be able to hear him. Yeah, as you walk through.
Dr. Schultz.
Yeah, hey Brian, how you doing?
Good, sir. Good. We are actually live on air, so we're calling to chat.
Well, yeah. Hi, how are you doing? It's Dr.
Schultz.
Dr. Schultz. How are
Why
you?
don't you hand him the phone real quick? And then, here, Adam, grab that.
I'm doing very well. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing okay. Well, we're sitting here, Canna MD, you know, the guys, Ryan and Michael and Adam, and we were just about to walk in. Actually, I was asking Ryan kind of what Canna MD is really doing, and he was talking about some of the legislation, the rules that doctors have to follow. They're more stringent here in Florida as opposed to being a doctor in, say, California or Colorado that's seeing patients. And perhaps maybe you kind of walk us through some of what it's been like for you. What led you to want to be a prescribing doctor, a recommending doctor? I know you don't prescribe necessarily here, as you do recommend. So kind of walk us in for you.
Yeah, I think, there's a combination of reasons, but the biggest reason that I chose to do cannabis was seeing what was happening with the opioid crisis, now the opioid crisis, but, years last year or the years before, what was happening in the emergency department with narcotics overdoses and narcotic abuse, primarily from the opioids that were prescribed by other physicians. So it's always been my stance not to use narcotics, and I've always used them very sparingly, and I've always gotten into trouble for that because there was a push several years ago to make pain the fifth vital sign, and a push to increase the use of our narcotics to treat that pain, which I had always thought is unnecessary and dangerous. And now we're seeing the evidence of that.
Yeah,
dangerous.
And cannabis is really the only thing that's going to prevent more opioid death, regardless of what legislators think or, strange enough, what the pharmaceutical company thinks. So that's the main reason.
Just for clarification for people, in case somebody either swerved off the road or tripped on their treadmill as they're listening to this, you are a full-on physician and MD, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And
I should add actually that Dr. Schultz is one of the most seasoned medical cannabis recommending physicians in the state of Florida. There's only maybe a handful that have more patients than he does. We're very fortunate to have him. He's very knowledgeable. He's the best.
Yeah, for me, I appreciate you coming on. And I almost wanted to say, you know, you're tapping on my mission. When I started this podcast and wrote a book a long time ago, it was about how we were treating people in addiction and how people were going to die and are dying. And to hear, man, of your study, of your research and what you're doing, I kind of wanted to people to, before they did actually hear you, that it was the doctor that did say that about cannabis and opiate deaths or opiate epidemic. Would you mind just walk through that water for me one more time, just so somebody listening knows they didn't just hear some craziness?
Yeah, I mean, my specialty is emergency medicine, and you know, I a regular MD, went to residency in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. The opioid crisis is you know, I can't say that it was intentionally created. I just know that the people behind most of the narcotics that we provide to patients to treat their pain is Purdue Pharma. Purdue Pharma is the largest, I mean, the only manufacturer of things like OxyContin and MS-Contin and fentanyl, those sorts of things that are causing the most death. So the interesting fact about that, and anyone can just search the internet's Purdue Pharma and find out about this company, but it's a privately held company by physicians. It's created by physicians, owned by physicians, and they've been in lots and lots of trouble over the past years. They're currently being sued by several states, by several cities. They paid out major lawsuits for the addictiveness of their products, and as far as I know, the government makes no effort to regulate them or shut them down, even though they're one of the primary main people that are responsible for the epidemic. So it's you know, everyone focuses on pharmaceutical companies, but cannabis in and of itself, aside from the opioid crisis, is a threat to all healthcare system and a threat to, you know, not just pharmaceutical companies, but tobacco companies and alcohol companies. When I treat my patients, they come in for all sorts of things. They come in for psychiatric problems, GI problems, neurological problems, pain problems, and I treat all of them with just cannabis, with one medication. So this is a game changer for all of healthcare, and all of them, whether they realize it or not, are feel threatened from this. And that's why we get, you know, that's the main reason we get so much pushback, because there's so much money involved, and there's so many, you know, so many corporations involved that are going to lose money.
Yeah, I appreciate you being brave enough to even say that, to even come out and fight against the powers that be, man. In the world we live in, these are risky things to be saying, for sure, and are things that need to be said.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's all, there's no conspiracy. It's just, you know, you look on the internet and you can find out about, you know, who makes OxyContin and what their history has been, and it's all pretty obvious. So.
Yeah, I talked about it. I was on Rogan and I brought it up about the physicians union, the power of it here in Florida, and some moves they had made when Suboxone was coming out, and how treatment is done, how you could prescribe narcotics for narcotics, how they made those changes. Man, I got emails. Right. I got emails, and like I was looked at, I was called a whack job, you know, all the comments. I'm going, man, a conspiracy theorist, guy doesn't know anything. I'm like, yeah, dude, okay, man, it's all right, you know. Right. And that's been my fight here, and our fight here at the Cognitive Rampage, is kind of letting people know about that, what I call chemical incarceration, the front line of treatment being pills. Personally, you know what, I'm going to actually ask a doctor this, an actual doctor, because I'm saying it behind doctors' back, so I might as well ask one, especially one that I may get luckier on my team. I've often said that doctors that are prescribing antidepressants, and in particular doctors that have been licensed for, you know, good 10, 15 years already, not fresh out of school, but that begin to issue antidepressants after a first meeting a patient within 3 to 10 minutes of talking to them, is practicing out of their scope of practice.
Well, I think that, you know, I think the complicity isn't so much with the individual doctor. So I don't think there's many doctors. I think it's the minority of the actual doctor that's out there and saying, hey, I'm going to try and get these people addicted to these medications. I think the problem is that they're trying to do their best at helping people, and they're under a lot of constraints to do that.
Sure.
They're under a time limit, which is that's the biggest thing. You know, to maintain a family practice, you're seeing 5 to 6 patients an hour. So the amount of time that you have with them is very limited. And that's just to be able to make a living. Not a great living. I mean, a good living by general standards, but not a great living by physician standards. So, you know, they have pressure from the insurance companies. They have pressure from the patients. The patients walk in and they say, I need this medication.
Oh, yeah.
And they're basically saying, and the reason they say that is that they see the commercials. They see that they have all this marketing geared towards the fact that, oh, you're unhappy in your life, and so you need a medication to make you happy. So the patient comes in and says, hey, I need this medication, and the doctor has to try and convince them sometimes that they don't, which is not going to work. So it's not always, I don't find a lot of doctors that are complicit in that. There are doctors absolutely out there that will write for anything that the patient wants, or most importantly, are willing to make a profit from getting people addicted to narcotics for their pain. And you know, we had a huge problem with pill mills in the past, and those have been reduced, but they haven't really gone away. They've just been better regulated and better controlled to the point where you still have a pain management doctor who sees the patient and charges the patient every 30 days to make sure that, you know, they stay on the medication, to make sure that they're not selling the medication, to make sure they're not doing cannabis instead of this. And it's hard. I can't say it specifically that, you know, these doctors are focused on making a profit, but it just seems that they are. There's not a lot of flexibility with them, and it seems like they're just concerned that the patient comes in every 30 days, they pay the amount that they told them to, and then they continue to prescribe for them. But I don't think the majority of doctors are actively thinking, hey, I need to get these patients on these medications, and then that's going to work out as a profit for not just me, but the whole healthcare industry. A lot of times, just like the move many years ago for the 5th vital sign to be pain, a lot of doctors pushed back against that, but they were told by their insurance companies, their administrators, their hospital administrators, their group administrators, we have to get on board with this because Medicare is on board with this, because the government's on board with this, and so you have to do this. And so they said, okay, well, if all these people say that this is what I have to do and it's good for the patient, then I'll start doing it. And again, it's mostly a time constraint. It's mostly that they have so many things pushing against them. Like you said, powers that are much bigger than us that are making them do these things, and they're just trying to make a living. They're just trying to do what they can.
Yeah, I've often spoke up for them as well, because they're trapped by insurance systems and also the duty to treat. I mean, you have a duty to treat, and that's held above. I mean, you're sued constantly. Good luck if you want to go be a physician now. By the time, if you even have a life, and school loans and lawsuits that come after that, and you're right, they're in the ERs going, you have a duty to treat. This is my pill. This is what I need. I have this kind of pain. They are trapped, and insurance companies have quotas. Hospitals have quotas you got to meet, and they're beat up from the backside. My main argument there, I guess, was pointing out that they really don't have that much training in psychology itself, much less does a 3-minute or 10-minute interview, allow you to give somebody an antidepressant, as opposed to a medicine that has never killed anybody, never hurt anybody, has a small addictive process to certain types of people. It's like a 5% mark, but that's usually based on environmental issues. But outside of that, that's kind of what I was pointing out. But to me,
I agree with your main point, and I regularly tell patients that if you've been diagnosed with depression, you've been diagnosed with anxiety, whatever it is, I ask them who were you diagnosed by, and if you're diagnosed by a primary care doctor, I usually request that they go to a specialist.
Wow, wow, man, that is
but again,
good. Hell yeah.
The constraints that these doctors are feeling. Again, most of them aren't complicit. They're not saying that they're just fighting an uphill battle. Again, the patient comes in, they're clear symptoms of depression, but their insurance companies, don't want them to refer them to specialists because that costs them extra money. So some insurance companies, you get in trouble, you lose money when you refer them to a specialist. The patient doesn't want to go see a psychiatrist. The patient says, I don't really think I'm depressed, doc. And you're like, well, clearly you have symptoms of depression. So I know it seems like there's, a lot of times, like I said, the doctors, they're not really doing it on purpose. They're just trying to do the best they can. But you're absolutely right. A lot of times they're doing stuff that they shouldn't be doing, but not maliciously is what I'm saying. They're doing it because they're just stuck in a situation of trying to get stuff done within a system that's harmful for them. But I absolutely agree that, especially long-term treatment, if someone's been seeing a PCP for depression, never been to a psychiatrist, they need to go to psychiatry. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's a good push. And actually, I'll walk into some other issues I had in a little while. But I wanted to bring up, because I think as a doctor, you deciding to do that in a place like Florida, is brave as shit. And we need that. Those are leaders out front that are deciding to do that because of what you believe, and going against those powers that be that make it difficult for you to keep a practice. And you jump out there not knowing a lot of times what the laws are, what you want to do. And so I think that's where CanAMD kind of comes in and helps. And if you guys would, is maybe talk about what your kind of concerns were getting into this, what CanAMD does for you and how you guys walk them through. Where's that synergy? How does that work out? And maybe to kind of help other doctors either go, hey, you know what, I can get in it. It is safe. And maybe either these are the guys that can help me, or because doctors a lot of times I'm assuming don't really know either, because we don't really know what to do. So how did that marriage happen, if you will, between CanAMD and then your fears? Kind of walk us through what that's like for the physicians now.
Well, the thing about CanAMD is that they're from Florida. So a lot of the companies that I've worked with in the past, they're from other states. So they understand the regulations in their state, but they don't understand what's happening in Florida, and they don't really understand Florida. We're Florida. We're a different state. So, but right now, I mean, it has been rocky, but it's still pretty rocky. So, what CanAMD can do for other doctors is really educate them about not the regulations that are there, because the regulations that are there are for everyone to read. It's all these gray areas, and there's a lot of gray areas because Florida, especially the Department of Health, is kind of behind at doing what the SBA told them to do. And so they're trying to kind of play catch up on all these things. So there's still a lot of gray areas where, if you base your practice or you base your patient population on these gray areas, then that can be difficult. So that's what we're focused on. We're focused on sticking to the clear areas, putting an abundance of caution in those gray areas so that no one gets stuck as we move forward. And that's what a lot of companies found. They invested in these gray areas, and then when the gray areas went away or were clarified, they were left without patients. A perfect example of that is, there's companies out there that started as complete telemedicine just to do the cannabis recommendations. As soon as the law, SBA comes out and says no telemedicine, they're stuck, So that's exactly, and, that's exactly the kind of thing that we're focused on is letting our patients know and letting the doctors know, what's easy, what's clarified, what's absolute, and then what's gray. And our opinion of what the future might hold, but still a big caution about not being in that gray area.
Very well said, Dr. Schultz. Thank you, sir. Yes, we're very lucky to have Dr. Schultz on our team. He's got the experience.
Well, thank you.
And thank you so much for actually coming in and thank you for taking time out of your day to do this for us. Yeah. We really appreciate it, sir.
And hey, Dr. Schultz, you were welcome on the podcast. I'd love to have you in studio, man, and really walk down some more. So open invitation anytime you can come by. I'm here in the studios here in Orlando on the front side of Windermere. So I'd love to have you over one time.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be great.
Very good. Have a great day, Dr. Schultz. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, just where can people find actually Dr. Schultz? I'd like to shout him out. His website, maybe.
Yeah, well, mycanamd.com. Just check us out online. We've got one of the most, I think, the most, thanks to Adam, the most impressive website in the industry.
You think you'll like it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really good educational stuff on there. If you're interested in learning about the medical cannabis industry here in Florida, it's a very comprehensive website, and we've got the best doctors. And yeah, I just wanted to kind of touch on that a little bit more. There's a lot of companies that are just fly by night companies that are trying to see patients. There's a lot of doctors out there that, took the 2-hour course, but you can't learn what Dr. Schultz knows in 2 hours. You can't learn what we know. I mean, I've been a part of the medical cannabis industry here in Florida for the past 4 years. There's so much stuff that people don't understand, and it's brand new here. So, if you want a company that knows what they're doing, if you want a company that's not going to take advantage of you, if you want a company that you can trust, call CanMD, and we'll take good care of you.
And you guys are the ones that help doctors open up their facilities or get approved to be people that are recommending, because again, there's no prescribing here, but helping doctors get set up because like they have time in their day to walk through all the legislation and a lot, I can imagine a lot of doctors won't even fuck with it because of legislation. If you screw up, maybe that means their license,
Well, there's a lot of confusion. There is a lot of gray area. And then there's a lot of new stuff that is brand new to Florida. I mean, there's a lot of information about dosing, about products, and if you're a recreational user, a lot of that stuff you're going to know. But medical patients that have, maybe they smoked it back in college back in the 60s and they don't even know what it is now. And the recreational marijuana, they don't even know what it is. So, they go to a doctor that knows less than they do, and then what? Our physicians,
Here's
they're
an opiate.
educated. Yeah, our physicians,
narcotic.
they're educated
50.
on the different strains out there, which strains work for which ailments, which conditions.
That's important.
And the dosing too. I mean, you're not going to die. You're not going to overdose.
But for somebody that doesn't know, and you go eat one of them gummy bears,
you're never going to want to touch it again.
Yeah, you'll run away.
You're gonna. You will feel like you are going to die. You're not going to die. You're going to be really, really high. But you want a physician that's going to help you and guide you, and that's what CanMD is here for. We educate our physicians. We guide our patients. We're here for our patients. Patient care comes first with CanMD.
Yeah, I don't want to ask a lot of the trade secrets about how you actually do it, so I'm going to try to avoid some of that. But the synergy here, how did the synergy between Canna Chronicles and CanMD, how'd you guys link up?
We actually had the opportunity, and we were fortunate enough to run into Michael at a industry conference, and we hit it off. And he's been a huge asset to our team, and he'll continue to be a huge asset to our team going forward. We're excited to be working with him and working with Canna Chronicles, and we want to get the word out. Patients need to be educated. I mean, nobody knows you can get it here in Florida yet, but you can. It's here.
Yeah,
it is here.
8A.
Yeah,
Senate Bill 8A.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely, yeah.
And you've kind of been on maybe the media side of it. That almost, I'm seeing Remy Dent coming here. That's another House of Cards reference. Obviously, we're aware of which series I'm rewatching. Last month it was Sopranos. I kept quoting that shit, right? So kind of walk us through, what brought you into this, why you stay in the field, how you're in the field, where you're doing, and just your views have been shared, obviously. But what brought you in?
Yeah, so I've been in digital media, been selling products online, things like that for a number of years. And in 2014, I had a digital media company working specifically with real estate investors and what have you. And I saw a big void in the advocacy side because I was actually arrested. I was thrown in a cage and treated like a violent criminal, like a violent animal for having a little joint.
Yep.
And that changed everything because otherwise I wouldn't have had the passion that I have now, And I had a really good upbringing, and lived in good neighborhoods, all that. And I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and I got arrested for it. And it was really, I didn't want to take opiates. I still have a prescription to hydrocodone. I didn't want to take it. And I got arrested and everything. And I saw an opportunity to grow a following. And the way it was marketed wasn't just, and I called the page Yes on 2, and we changed that into Floridians for Cannabis. And, now I've got the largest cannabis publication in the state of Florida now. So, yeah.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a beautiful synergy, man. It's the people that are bringing it to the patients, helping the doctors get informed, get set up so everybody stays healthy. I mean, because you got to know what you're smoking or what you're inhaling. There's so much to do. So, I mean, some of that regulation is necessary, and companies like you are laying the groundwork for doctors to come in and do it safely. And then you're on the front end of the advocate movement, the awareness, the education, letting people in, bringing them through. And I love how it happened because you got fucking arrested. And that's the view, right? Of like Jeff Sessions pissing people off. So you took that same angle of going, I see what happened.
Yeah.
I see what you're doing here. And, a lot of times until that happens to you, until you really are put in a cage for something that you're trying to either treat yourself to avoid something else, it gets real V for Vendetta in this motherfucker. You know what I mean? It starts to get what the fuck, I mean, that's why that mask is there. You know what I mean? In case, I always tell everybody, look, if we want a revolution, I'm in. You know what I mean? Just tell me where, when, I'll put the mask on. You know what I mean? We don't need a leader. We are all that. And whether it starts with baby steps at legislation or educating people on what cannabis really does for people and patients, to those that don't want the spotlight but are in the lab making it better, like my buddy, I will just call him Truth, that's what he went by, who's focused his whole life to trying to heal people and find better ways to do it, to people like you on the business end and the research end of the medicine. I mean, this is what's necessary to actually make a change, to make a revolution, to change. Like you said, the cat's out of the bag, or you said this, somebody said the cat's out, right? And it's not going back in. And if we can do anything at the Rampage or anywhere else to make sure that motherfucking cat starts just slicing shit, we out of the bag and just informing. That's what I wanted to bring you all on to do and to talk about. And Adam, we've known each other a long time, man. And you're a cerebral dude, man. And you have. I'm proud of you, man. I'm kind of back going like, I ain't seen you in like 10 years. And my
He's
man,
all grown up.
He's all grown up. He's a dad and shit too. He's all these things. I mean,
right.
I'm sorry.
I'm a proud dad too.
Yeah, proud dad, right? I'm fear for them, but it's okay. But we've talked a lot, before we got everybody here on a podcast, man. And so for you, I know you're an entrepreneur, had your business, you're still doing. What say you, man? We've had conversations. I want to make sure, honestly, that in this chat we cover as much as we can that you and I really wanted to bring to the airwaves, because I think you called me mainly going, dude, we got to educate people. We got to do this right. We got to get people out there, get the informed people here, which you have certainly brought, about what that is. So kind of, have we missed something, or just something you want to walk through? Because we've had some small chats between, and you have as much passion as these gentlemen in the room do.
Definitely. I mean, I honestly think we have covered, most of those topics. I mean, we're constantly adding information to our site to help educate, all of the patients and basically everyone within Florida. So unless we can, I'm sorry.
I could add something.
No,
so, I noticed how you say you're like cerebral. I really like that,
Right.
having in-depth intellectual conversations and just no judgment at all, just complete, open-mindedness, if you will.
Yeah.
And I found personally that cannabis, especially intermittent use of particular strains like sativa strains, like Jack Herer, Lottie Dottie, have helped me significantly increase my cognition, and even more so than Provigil. I don't know if you've
yeah, I'm not fucking with that. You're on your own there, buddy.
Yeah, so
You can biohack that shit all you want to, buddy.
Yeah, but
I'm good.
I think cannabis is a lot. There's a lot of misconceptions with cannabis, and I think it actually can really help increase your neuroplasticity, your ability to understand other people's emotions, be more funny, if you will, and be more intelligent, in my opinion. So
yeah, I argue paranoia doesn't actually really exist. I really don't think it does. So when they put it as a symptom and shit, I'm like, bullshit. It doesn't. It makes sex better. It makes food better. It makes music better. But
I think certain strains for certain people I mean, it's just like any medicine, you know.
I would
Different
agree.
strains, they work differently on different people, you know.
I would
My
agree.
favorite strain versus your favorite strain, they're going to be two different things, more than likely. 'cause
Well,
we're
but
two
here's what I
different
mean
people.
by no paranoid. I don't think it actually makes paranoia. It just wakes people up to how real the fucking world is.
Hey, fair enough.
You just
Fair
kind of
enough.
smoke and it enhances everything. You're like listening to music you never really liked. You're like, shit, that's all right. I can dig that. So then that's why I can't drive right when you're on it, because if you really look what the fuck we're doing on I-4, you're out of your fucking mind. I don't trust motherfuckers that much, but yet I'm willing to drive this far from them at 90.
No.
Right. And this is what we're doing. So when you smoke and you're in the thing, you're like, what the fuck are we doing? That's why it's not real paranoia. I think people wake up and realize the world is kind of fucked up right now.
You may think you're going 90, but you're only going 30.
Yeah, you're
only
chilling.
going 30.
You're chilling. But you know, and that's kind of what I mean is, and look, don't take this professional advice from myself, even though I have mental health counseling is the education. That's what I did. But let's just say I biohacked this on myself, if you will. Right.
Sure.
And to speak to the medicine point too, actually, it's a huge point where cannabis, I think, will have a bigger influence on mental health than people actually know. And so we look at the numbers of how many people are actually affected by some sort of mental health over a certain year period. It's huge. 60-70% of us face something, right? Well, where people really get in trouble are those that have mild to moderate effects, right? So a mild ADHD person, right? I'm not going to argue ADHD doesn't exist. I've seen it in its full, severe forms, right? And there's gray areas, and just because we can label behaviors and put it on something doesn't mean it's something. So I get all that argument, but we still have to know what something is to study it, to know how to treat it. So if we're dealing with people, which I think is more the majority, especially today's environment with the internet and the stress that we get, the EMF, the go-go, all this other stuff, lack of sunlight, all these things that we get, I think that people that truly that have some mild symptoms, mild ADHD, we'll use that one, right? That goes under the radar for so long, right? And then people go 5 years and they don't quite finish what they wanted to. They start 4 or 5 businesses, or they try this and they can almost get there, but they can't quite finish, and they keep jumping tasks, right? This is a mild form of ADHD. When that routine starts to happen, then their own life falls apart with small little decisions, right? And this is just mild. After 5 years, after 10 years, those mistakes you made have piled up. And now all of a sudden you got severe depression because the mild ADHD went untreated, right? And the reason I bring up ADHD is I was diagnosed with mild ADHD even after I went through all of the schooling and everything. And there's a way that I thought, and I realized on myself that I thought you could test it, and cannabis is a play in that, is coffee, caffeine, and cannabis work opposite the effect on someone with ADHD. So if you have ADHD and you smoke an indica, you are going to focus on something and work into it. You're not going to get sleepy. And even if you smoke a sativa, and the same with ADHD on any level, severe or moderate, you will begin to focus. Caffeine works the same way. So with mild people that aren't going to admit it, they're not going to say, oh, that's ADHD. I'm not taking a pill for that, and I don't recommend you do. What cannabis brings, even for me in my life, is I don't have to fuck around with methamphetamine, which is essentially what Adderall and Vyvanse and these fucking things are. It's a molecule or two removed, but it's essentially meth. I don't have to put those in my body. And with lighter doses of a cannabis, I can be focused, just like you said, and I can stop people from being on Adderall their whole life. And how many people that don't report their mild depression, their mild ADHD, that don't report it, that after 5 years of battling that, 10 years, they have become one of the severe diagnosed. That's where that cannabis, that's where I get behind it and go, not only are you saving opiate people from dying, being addicted, surgeries, pain, all of that is said, but all of those that have mild, that don't say it, that just battle through and try to make it with 85 cups of caffeine. Caffeine and ADHD, same thing. If you want to test yourself, biohack, sit down, drink some hardcore caffeinated shit and see if you focus. The person without ADHD, I can't focus, right? They're on caffeine. I'm moving, I'm everywhere, right? ADHD, heavy caffeine doses, all of a sudden you're focused on something and typing, add some cannabis to that. You'll sit there 4 or 5 hours like ADHD doesn't exist.
I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was a kid.
Okay.
But I used to throw away the Ritalin. Right. I mean, because it just made me feel weird. And so I've learned to control it over time and deal with it over time by self-medicating, caffeine, and a little bit of ganj. I mean, same thing for me, man. I'm right there with you.
And you're a professional made business owner making major moves in industries people are afraid to touch and know nothing about. You're running a social media push that's educating and changing lives. Okay, so no one here on the couch is at home eating Funyuns just saying fuck it.
That would be awesome. That really would.
That'd be a luxury.
That would be fucking awesome. But no,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
Those are some of the things that I think it puts to bed. We're on the precipice of a change here, man. Like we really are. And I said it before. We are the missing link. If you ask me, we're looking for it, but we are it. We are the monkeys who take pictures of our dicks and beat each other up and kill each other over stupid flags of some sort. You know, it's fucking weird what we're doing. You know what I mean? So we're kind of half between chimp and cerebral somethings that we think we're evolved higher than. It's ridiculous.
Like a lemming.
Yeah. Yeah. Something, man. But I mean, you all are heroes in that world to me. The doctors that you guys are helping are heroes to me. Even the patients that are strong enough to say, fuck your opiate. And I'm going to try this despite the legal, you know, like Christina Cusack, who said, fuck your shots for MS. This helps me. This works. All of those are the heroes, the scientists, those leading, even the ones that follow your blog, the ones that see your doctors and your investors and the people that have backed you and what you do. And Adam, you talk about every time we're on the phone with a passion, man, that I talked about when I started this shit a long time ago for the Rampage, man. And I appreciate all y'all coming in and what you do and educating people.
Thank you for having us.
you.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Mike's open anytime, Adam. Anytime, Ryan, Michael. Anytime, you guys. You know where it is. You know where we're at.
We'll be back.
Yeah. Now, I always drop one more time because there's a real thing that exists called podcast remorse, and you will be off of this podcast, and in 10 minutes, you're gonna look at me and go, "Fuck."
That's right.
I meant to say this shit and I forgot. And so I set it up once before and just trying to put it on the table. And so just to marinate, if there's something that you want to say, so you're not out back screaming, fuck, you know, I meant to say that shit.
Yeah, we're actually looking for more heroes like Dr. Schultz to join our team. So if there's any physicians out there that are looking to get into the medical cannabis industry, please reach out to Canna MD. We would love to have you.
Brilliant. Michael?
I think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Cool, man. I appreciate y'all coming on. Ryan, you good, man?
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Mike's
Been a
open
pleasure,
anytime.
Adam.
Yeah, hit the website again, hit Twitters, all those things that you guys want to put out too, hit those.
Yeah. You can check out cannachronicle.com for the latest news and cannabis politics and different stories and product reviews and what have you. And
My Canna MD for your education and to obtain your medical cannabis card in the lovely state of Florida.
We'll see you guys soon.
Love you.